Hello and welcome to Oz by Drone. I'm Greg and we've got Chad in the background. Hi Chad, how you doing?
How you doing, Greg? Good to see you.
Thanks for joining and being here today as our fill-in co-host to substitute for John. John's unfortunately not available today. He's doing something radical. He's playing music and making money doing that. That's his other day job.
I'll try my best to look old, slightly balding, and sound educated to try and get his place as good as I can.
Oh, look, you'll be fine. It's all good. We're here to have fun anyway, so just be yourself. So what have you been up to this week? What's been happening in your world?
Well, this week really has just been recovery mode for me. I've just got back from a month-long trip over in America, so getting over jet lag and so forth, and getting back to dry Queensland.
Okay. How dry is it?
Well, currently right now it's not, because it's actually raining for the first time in a couple of months today, hence me being stuck inside. But It's been extremely dry, and the rain is much welcome. Means we can't fly though.
Same here. We're getting a little bit of rain, but only along the coast for us. So certainly inland Australia is still definitely suffering from drought. But we'll come back to that later. And what I've been up to this week is still recovering myself, not from travel, but still recovering from that sinus operation. It's really fun to 4 times a day get 600 mils of water and chuck it up one nostril and out the other, but probably too much information.
That sounds something like someone's wife would tell you to do when you've been in trouble or something.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so moving on from that, today, let's get started. So before we do anything, so we'll get started with the news, and normally we try and have John do the news reading, so we're going to put your news reader cap on and see how we go. So we'll start off with the first story of the day.
Sounds like a plan. First on the news story is the report that's come out from a midair between a Robertson R-44 helicopter and a drone, and it's very interesting to see the incident report, and actually tells a lot of information that and in a way dispels a lot of the myths of people's fears of drones and full-scale aviation coming together.
Okay, let's just put a picture of this up on the screen. So there you can see 2 things. Firstly, on the left, you can see the offending drone. It is a GPS drone, but that's another story. But the helicopter, the interesting thing is, so this was a spraying helicopter. Both pilots were flying legally and appropriately and met all of their requirements. The drone at the time was on the way descending as soon as a pilot became aware of the chopper. So everyone's doing the right thing, but things still do happen. But I think the positive thing here is the fact that it didn't bring the chopper down. Sure, it didn't hit the rotors and any of the control surfaces, but it was a good happy ending. Pardon the pun, and everyone walked away from it. So that was a good story.
You hear a lot in the people talking about sort of doomsday of what happens if there's a midair and so forth. And I believe that this is the 3rd midair between a drone and a helicopter that has been confirmed so far in the history of drones, and each one has ended the same way. So while you don't want to see that happening, and we want to try and space these things out, accidents do happen, but we're starting to get some decent rock hard data here to show that when these midairs do happen, and they happen infrequently, that it's not like everything's going to explode and the world's going to end. So the reality of what's happening here is starting to show.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. What's the number of flight accidents per passenger? Boom,
yeah.
Tish. We don't have passengers, but anyway. So moving on from that.
Yeah. And next we have, and your daughter will be extremely glad to hear about this, because I hear she's a big fan. Singing sensation Drake will be using drones in his live shows to basically improve the look. So some autonomous drone action happening where they're sort of flying around with lights and causing different shapes and so forth. So that should be interesting and different, and maybe something a bit more common in the future, maybe for live shows.
Let's just have a quick look. We've got a couple of...
Well, this kind of thing, of course, is nothing new. We've seen this kind of thing done before in other sort of publicity stunts, but I think this is the first time that it's been used in a concert situation.
Yeah, I believe so. But look, it's interesting. It's a different manufacturer. So the company in question, their name is Lucy, I believe their name is. Lucy micro drones from a Swiss company, Verity. And what I think is really cool is the fact that we're using AI, where these drones are aware of the other drones around them, and the people who are actually controlling them, they don't have to be pilots. They're part of Drake's production company. There's no pilot involved, other than probably from a safety perspective. They're controlling it and building the shapes and doing that kind of thing. So interesting.
It's a good indication of how far the technology has come in terms of autonomous flying, that it can be that reliable, but also that easy and probably cheap enough that it can be done en masse in that kind of situation. So exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll go from here. I'm just trying to work out what it is that my daughter is pointing at. I think your face is frozen. Oh no, there we are. It's moving again.
On my wonderful internet, I apologize if my face freezes occasionally. It's not me.
Yeah, it's okay. If it freezes, we'll just keep going on regardless. So we've got one more story.
We've got recently the Senate has put out its recommendations for drone regulations and so forth, and we're starting to get a lot of reactions from various people about what their thoughts are on the recommendations from the government in that regard. Some of these reactions from various people.
Yeah, I did intend to have a photo of the report up on the screen, but that photo was corrupt. But anyway, so the interesting thing here is there's a website, theconversation.com. They've had some commentary and they've got a reaction article on that. And they say the proliferation of drones with expanding capabilities, the report assesses prospects of a viable drone industry which does not compromise aviation safety, security and privacy. It's not a roadmap to open skies, but sets out the conditions on which future drone policy must rest, and so on and so on. I think, we've had a look at that report over the last few weeks, and certainly you were on there before. I think it's not a bad thing, but it's definitely not a perfect report. And no matter which way you go, someone's always going to be unhappy. But as a drone community, we need to continue to chat about it, to lobby where appropriate.
And particularly the hobbyist and fun sector, because I think we probably have the smallest voice in this, because we don't have the push, the money and the backing that the commercial and the big businesses have. And generally in life, they're the ones that get listened to the most, because they've got the most power. As a community, which drones in general, we are growing very rapidly. We need to make our voice heard, because we pay our taxes, we have our rights just like anyone else, and we need to let them know that we're here, and that we're not evil people.
We're not
like the media thinks we are.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that whatever it is we do, we've got to work out a way of either slicing up airspace or working out how do we get hobbyist aircraft to coexist with the future of, autonomous or semi-autonomous delivery vehicles, and whatever it's going to be, we've got to work out how to do that. Yeah. And,
particularly at the stage that we are at, with autonomous vehicles probably not being as smart as we would like early on. It would be good to be able to sort of slice that up, so they can basically do their own thing and not have to worry about getting out of the way of other things.
Yeah, just 1 second. I'm getting some messages that I've got to turn you down a little bit. I hope that's good. Anyway,
I often get told that I have to be turned down.
Mostly by CASA.
Yeah.
So let's move on from there.
So, and the last piece.
The last piece
is, and I'm sure most of you guys are in here would be fully aware of this, but DJI had their live feed recently to release their new Mavic 2. And of course, 2 of these models have come out. You've got the standard Mavic 2, which is just all-round improvements all over the place.
At
to
DJI,
the original Mavic Pro, but also the Zoom model, which is I believe, the first consumer drone to offer zoom capabilities with a 2x zoom. Yeah.
So definitely the two models have been released. Everyone's been talking about it. Here's my personal view. If you're someone who already owns a Phantom, you've got a high quality camera already. The Zoom might be the right one for you. If you don't have a Phantom and you want to do high quality photography, maybe the Mavic Pro will be the right one for you.
Yeah. Well, I've been holding off because I really like the compact nature of the Mavic, because I do I want everything to be compact, but I held off on the original Mavic just because of the limitations of the original camera and sensor and so forth. So I've been waiting for the Mavic 2 for me to put my money down and go and get something. So they've answered all my issues with the original Mavic quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, it's a nice piece of equipment, and just because people are not traditional photography drone people and they might normally fly acro or racing or whatever, it doesn't mean you can't have a bit of fun as well with the other type of aircraft and vice versa.
Yeah. Oh, look, they all have their place and they all do something different, and they all have something that the other one doesn't offer. So what you've got to do with anything that you buy in life is to choose what's suiting what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave that there for the moment, and we'll move on to the next thing in our agenda today. So we've got a guest that we're bringing into the show now, Young360, and we'll just make sure we open up your microphone. Hello, Young, and welcome.
Hello.
So Young's visiting us today visiting us from Hong Kong. So whereabouts in Hong Kong are you? You're close to Central?
Yes, I live very close to Central.
Okay. Hong Kong, beautiful city, but is there anywhere to fly there?
Yes, actually Hong Kong is quite mountainous. So once you sort of get out of the city, although Hong Kong is a city in itself, then you have quite a lot of places to fly.
Okay.
Like mountains and the beach and so on.
Okay.
I've been to Hong Kong 3 times now, and it's just an absolute, it's a gorgeous city, and I agree with you with the mountains. As soon as I get there, I'm like, where can I fly to? Because it's a treasure trove for someone that wants to take some nice footage, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I've travelled around Asia a little bit before in terms of work, and lovely places to go and photograph. But recently you've been, or not recently, I can't remember the date, but you've travelled to Australia. And since we're Oz by Drone, we have to have a look at a little bit of that footage.
Yeah.
Let's put that up.
Wouldn't be.
But then actually, because it's winter time in Australia, and then it's a lot windier than I expected. So I flew Spark just once, and then it didn't really go further because it was keep on giving me warning signal. And I was so scared because it was the first trip ever with a drone. But my aunt, and it just risked it. And then he was also keep getting wind signal, but he just flew it far. That's how we got that beautiful shot of Great Barrier.
Yeah. So we've
again.
Very short time, and you've been putting together some nice work since then. Let's bring up the next clip. So after flying with the Spark, you decided you wanted to play with a Mavic Air instead.
Yes, because Spark couldn't withstand the wind, and a lot of places that I go are very windy. So it always scares me whenever I get the wind signal. And actually that improved a lot with Mavic Air. Like Mavic Air is much stronger. So
I love those stingrays there. I think they were stingrays.
Oh, those were manta rays. Actually, they look similar.
Couldn't see from here.
Yeah. That was Australia, and now it's Hong Kong.
So what made you decide you wanted to get a drone in the first place?
Also, I like traveling around a lot, and I actually started a YouTube channel, and I thought, oh, it'd be really nice to show people, you know, how I travel, and sort of for me to show it in a nicer way with different perspective. I thought, oh, drone is the way to go, because, you know, I watch a lot of YouTube videos with a lot of people traveling, and I thought like drone footage definitely makes a bit of difference. So that's when I started like thinking about it. And then Spark came out, which is like a reasonably cheap drone. Yeah. Because for me at that time, like I thought Mavic Pro is a bit too expensive, because I wasn't even sure whether I would actually enjoy flying drone. But after Spark, that's why I decided to get my.
So thank you for being our first female on the channel.
Yay.
It's good seeing some non-bloke pilots out there. We've got one more video that I'm going to share in the background, which is from the Philippines. And the reason I wanted to share this one, little bit of bias, you know, my wife and daughter are Filipino. So got a connection to that country. Tell me about your travels there.
Yeah, so I actually, because I like scuba diving, Philippines is like one of the best places in the world to actually go for scuba diving. And this was my sort of recent trip earlier this year to Sabang Beach, and I was just playing.
Oh, we've lost Young there.
Wait 5 seconds, see if she comes back.
Reboot your computer and press any key to continue.
Yeah, I'm just glad that it's not me for a change.
Yeah. So if one of the moderators could throw in the chat room youtube.com/young360, that's the channel URL, just so that we can share that, and anyone who may not have already seen her channel can go and check it out.
It's also quite nice to see someone doing video footage that is a combination of drone footage and ground footage. I think what we tend to see a lot, and I'm certainly guilty of it, is nothing but drone footage in videos. So it's good to see the combination of it in Young's videos, just to sort of break it up a little bit and not make it so that it's so one-sided, which is nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So Young is still frozen there, but we got close to the end. That was certainly the end of the video content. We may have asked a few more questions, but we can put her faces are still on the screen, but it's going to be pretty boring if she can't talk. We've still got the freeze frame there. Anyway, look, let's leave that there for today. Unfortunately, we've got a technical problem that's caused that to bomb out.
Yay for the internet.
Yeah, welcome to the world. I wonder if it was my internet or hers. Who knows? She was saying she's got 10 meg upload and 100 meg download, which is better than I've got. But anyway, such is life. So let's move on from that. Just a couple of quick things. I want to do that.
Free stuff.
Good stuff, free stuff, giveaway. So there's a couple of competitions running. One of them is to give away a drone. For those who have not already seen the video, there's a separate video in the channel. Have a look for it. You can win a Tello, which is a very, very small drone. So it's even smaller than the Spark. It's more an indoor drone, but you can have some fun with it nonetheless. It's not a GPS drone, but it's not a Chad drone either, but you can still have some fun with it and learn a little bit.
If you've never picked up a drone before, or you don't understand anything, it's actually a really good beginner drone. It's really good for teaching kids problem solving and so forth. I've actually used a couple of tele drones with kids in school for doing like navigation exercises and things like that. So it's actually quite an interesting little drone and fun one. A nice cheap way for you to go out there and say, hey, is this for me, without spending a lot of money.
Yeah. And just on that topic, a reminder that John and I are doing something next year, Drone Camp, where we're going to invite young kids to come along to a camp. And as part of the registration, you get a Tello. And you can bring an existing drone if you've got one as well, and teach people how to fly. They will be flying more than just the Tello, but certainly that's a good one to get started and learn some of the skills before we put you in the hands of something a little bit bigger. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. So competition number 1, win a Tello. That will be given away next week, right? So next week, rain, hail or shine, we're going to give that away. There's still the existing Osmo giveaway when we hit 1,000 subscriptions in the channel. So as soon as we hit that, we're going to give that away as well. But here's a little secret. If you ask a friend to enter the Osmo competition, you get an extra entry into the Tello competition. So do have a look at the Tello video. It'll explain how to do that, and we'll give that away next week. Okay, and moving on from that, I'm going to do something a little bit different today. So
it's always scary.
Yeah. Well, since we've got someone who's a bit of a FPV guru, or whatever you would like to be known as.
Professional nerd.
Professional nerd. I thought we'd have a section where we can have a look at the chat. We can have some questions for you. And my producer, I'm just giving advance notice, I'm going to open up the rendezvous for anyone else to come in as well. So I'm going to post that link into the chat in a few minutes. And if anyone wants to come on the screen and have a chat to chat as well, we'll be able to do that as well. So
I guess while people are thinking of questions, and I guess you can probably, if they ask them questions while I'm talking, you can probably sort of keep track of them and sort of stuff. But I guess for a lot of the viewers here are probably more of the DJI style of drone. While they both fly, they're both very different in what they do. So generally speaking, the type of drone that I fly, people just they fly for fun in the same way that you'd go to a remote control plane club or model aircraft club and just fly them around. But they also have a similar use to the DJI drones in that we can put cameras on them and record things. And it's very interesting that both the DJI style drone, or the cinematography drone as I call it, and the racing drone capture the same thing but in very different ways. So what the DJI style of drone is very good at is you place it in a location or put it on a trajectory and it stays there very flat, very stabilized and so forth. So it's like a tripod in the sky, and it's very capable of doing that, and it's very easy to fly like that. The downside to that is you're very restricted on how fast you can fly it and the angles that you can put it in and so forth. And a racing drone allows you to do things or go in angles and locations that you probably couldn't go with your DJI style drone. On top of that, the majority of these drones don't have stabilized footage. So what ends up happening is you get sort of more like a fighter plane style of view rather than just a stabilized tripod type of view. So with those two style of drones, you can actually get two very distinct styles of footage, and get some stuff, very interesting stuff. For example, the racing drone is very good at action shots, and that's what I use a lot of my commercial stuff for.
Can I jump in with a quick question? I'm curious. I heard somewhere that in trying to merge these two worlds together, that DJI have created an OcuSync module that you can put on a non-DJI drone. Have you heard about that?
Yes, I don't know how much of some of the stuff that I can talk about. I sort of have inside ears into a lot of the industry and signed NDAs and things like that. But DJI has had a decent interest in the racing drone scene and has developed some technology there and is looking at bringing out some more technology in some of those areas. So I think in the coming years or coming year, you will probably see a lot more come out of them. So they will sort of expand into that area as they develop the technology. Okay,
cool. And I'm going to ask you an aerodynamic question now.
Here we go.
So this was one, we've been doing every now and again, we're talking about different aerodynamic principles and so forth, right? Going fast, something everyone wants to do. Talk about what happens when you tilt too far and some of that.
Well, of course, with particularly the racing drones and so forth. I fly more what's called the freestyle, where it's a little bit less aerodynamic. But if you're a racing drone, of course, you're just like a racing car. You want to be as aerodynamic as you can be and fly as fast as you can. And there's a lot of arguments within the racing community about what's best and so forth. Lots of big opinions, and very few people are actually putting stuff in the wind tunnels to prove it. But if you go down to basic aerodynamics, it's very interesting that if for the people who understand aerodynamics, there's two forms of drag. There's profile drag and induced drag, and profile drag has a very low effect at low speed, high effect at high speed, where induced drag has a high effect at low speed and a low effect at high speed. So it really depends on where that spectrum of speed and what Reynolds numbers you're running will affect it. But essentially, from the wind tunnel data that I have seen that people have done, at the speeds that we're running, at the size of the craft, the induced drag tends to be the more important feature rather than the profile drag at this stage. So it all comes down to ensuring that there's less vortices coming off it and so forth, rather than just going, oh, I'm going to make this slimlined and so that it sort of flies through the air. And the other problem is too that a lot of people don't realize with drones, especially racing drones, is that people think, and I'll grab them, I've got a drone right next to me. They think that a fixed wing aircraft flies through the air like so, where a drone, the faster you go, the more it tilts. And that's a problem, because you might be really, really low drag coefficient at that angle, but high drag coefficient at that angle. And it's very hard to design a structure that is efficient at all angles, because remember, fixed wing aircraft may only adjust their angle of attack by about 5 degrees.
Yeah,
so
I guess that was where my question is, right? So in simple terms, to go up, you're facing that way. If you want to go that way.
Exactly, yeah.
So what do you do if you've got an existing aircraft, other than you can't tilt indefinitely because you're not going to go faster? What are the other things that you do change if speed is your thing?
Well, first of all, what you want to do is get the weight down as much as you can. So get the thrust to weight ratio as high as you can, because the lighter the aircraft is, the less thrust is being wasted on just simply keeping the aircraft airborne. And then that allows you to put more power in going forwards. And then, of course, to go fast is, of course, bringing the drag down, like I spoke about, but then also going for propeller choice and motor choice. So the difference in the racing drone situation is we all make our own drones. So we're basically like building a kit car. We choose our motors, we choose our propellers. So what the racing guys will do is they will use a steeper pitch prop, so it bites more in the air and goes faster for the same speed. And then they'll put a higher kV motor on there. So that means that at full throttle, it'll have a higher RPM than a lower kV motor and so forth. But then again, this is all, you have to balance this out with the battery that you're using, because when you add more power, you're sucking more power out of the battery, and then you may not make it to the end of the race. It's kind of like you can make a race car. Yeah, you can make a race car really fast, but if you don't put a petrol tank in there big enough to make it to the end of the race, you may as well not even start the race. Yeah,
absolutely. Again, if we've got any questions from people specifically for Chad, put them up in the chat room. I do have one. Use the hashtag question as well to make it stand out. That'd be really good. I've got one here. Thoughts on enhanced geofencing Mavic 2 from Zebmeet. Now, I haven't got enough detail on exactly what enhanced geofencing in the Mavic 2 means, but my understanding, a couple of things, certainly in our part of the world, previously we had to send off an email to DJI and plug and pray and hope that they would let us do what we want to do. I understand that that's now an automated thing in Australia, which is good, insofar as you click in the app and, you know, all of the kind of things that people have had in the USA for some time. The second thing I understand, and this is only my understanding, is some sporting events, there's a lot more dynamic stuff, and also the airfields, they're changing the way they mark some of that up. So no longer just the circle pattern little bit more flexibility there. If anyone's got clearer information on that and they want to specify in the chat, that would be cool. What do I think of it? I'll say what I've always said. No manufacturer anywhere in the world should have the right to prevent me from doing what is legal for me to do. End of discussion.
Yep.
It's good that they're making it easier and quicker now, but that shouldn't be your choice. So what I think needs to happen is DJI need to provide a web portal or whatever is the mechanism so that they will enable each country's regulator to do what they want to do under their laws in their country.
Yep. That's a good start.
End of discussion.
I will only say I will believe in this geofencing thing when they start geofencing full-scale aircraft as well. It's that simple, because I look at what they're doing and I honestly say it's a little bit scary. Yeah. Purely because, firstly, the information that this geofencing data has is incorrect far too many times.
Yep.
And there will be situations in the future where an aircraft will need to get into an area that is not allowed to go into for safety reasons, and it won't be able to do it.
Yeah, look, I agree with you.
And when people don't like it, they just go and get hacked code and jump over the top of it.
Absolutely. We got another question here from Jazz Ariel, who did our news, and that was my bad. I forgot to mention at the beginning, every week we have our news report done, thanks to Jeff Sills, and it's also on the website dji.retroroms.info/news/. And if you go there, you can have a look at both the current information and the archive. And there's lots of really cool stories. There's many, many more than what we've covered here. We only scratched the surface. But the question from Jeff, where do you see the Drone Racing League in 2 years?
Where do I see the Drone Racing League in 2 years? That's a hard one to answer. The realist in me says that I see it in the same category as where BattleBots is, where it's like a niche, interesting thing that people watch when they happen to flip through channels and see it, but they don't get ultra excited about it. I don't think that what drone racing has to offer right now is good enough for the mainstream market. Maybe it might be in the future, but as someone who's been deeply involved in it, I just don't see the interest in there until drones become as commonplace in most households as, say, a basketball is. Yeah. And then I see things possibly changing. But DRL is doing probably one of the bigger pushes out there for, or Drone Racing League, for what people don't know, is a commercial racing league on TV over in America. And they're doing a very good job of advertising it, and they've got lots of glitz and glamour, and it's very highly produced. But if you can imagine, if you've seen BattleBots on TV, it's the drone racing equivalent of BattleBots. Extremely highly produced, and you're watching it after the fact and so forth.
I'm just waiting to see a drone with a hammer smashing it.
There we go. BattleBot drone racing. There you go.
That'd be hilarious. Let me go in a different direction for a minute. So me as a DJI pilot, I started with something without GPS and all of the other stuff, but they were just cheapy toys. Let's say I want to rewind the clock back and I want to get something first time around that's ready to fly. What would I be looking at?
In the racing drone arena, that's kind of hard because the majority, like 99% of the stuff, is literally just components, and then you've got to learn how to put them together, and then you've got to learn how to use the software and so forth. But there are some ready-to-fly quads out there, like, for example, the Vortex 230 Mojo, which comes complete. All you do is you add a battery and a radio, and you go and fly. So that's usually the type of thing that I would suggest to someone like that doesn't necessarily want to get into the hardcore. It sort of works out of the box, but it's still, what we have is still very much a hobbyist-based community. So we don't have the DJI style of thing in our area as of yet.
Yeah, I mean, I have the skills to be able to do some of the build it yourself, but I don't have necessarily the time or the motivation. I guess I'd want to do something to get my spark, if you know what I mean, and then see where it goes from there.
Exactly, yeah, and that's what the general public generally says. Like, I'm interested in it, but I don't want to have to put all that effort in it. I want sort of like the instant gratification. And generally speaking, these ready-to-fly style drones, they usually give you the taste, and then you're like, okay, I'm all in now. Now I'm gonna do it all, and that's how you lure them in.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you just use the D word when talking about quads, and I laugh at people using the word drone, and we're Oz by drone. I was over at Bald Hill the other day, and there was a guy flying a fixed wing there, and there's a sign, no, this is a drone-free zone, and that's something that I've spoken about before. Neither council nor anyone else has the authority to put that up there. They haven't passed it. But he said, no, it's not a drone. So it's an interesting one because according to CASA, anything that comes in the category of remotely piloted aircraft system, and it's in the same category, same laws. Anyway.
Well, when I'm talking to my hobbyist friends, I call it a quad. I don't call it a drone. But when I'm talking within general public, I call it a drone because over the last 3 years, I've gotten sick and tired of saying, oh, I fly quads, and they go, what's that? And then you have to explain it to them. So it's kind of like the general public has kind of dictated that they're called drones, and like we can't stop that. We can sort of jump up and down and go, oh, I don't want to be. It's not called a drone, all that sort of stuff. And for legal reasons, I fully understand that for getting more specific. But as far as the general public's concerned, it's a drone, and we kind of can't fight that. We've just got to go on with the flow.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of questions here. The first one is from Helicopter. What does Chad recommend for a first 5-inch freestyle quad, something lower priced?
Well, I'm going to have to be extremely biased and recommend the frame that I designed, which would be the Impulse RC Reverb. If you're looking for if you're looking for just a frame to add components to, then one of the things that I designed the Reverb for was to get the price down as much as possible to help with budgets in mind. So that's an option. But there are literally hundreds of different designs out there, and most of them work just fine. It's kind of like it's hard to buy a bad car these days. You might buy a car that's not as well suited to what you want, but it's still a good car. And the same thing is the case with quad frames out there these days.
Yeah. And we got another one from Jeff. Do you see any companies offering anything to compete with DJI? Do you think there will ever be a true competitor?
Well, that's kind of like saying I'm a nobody, and I'm going to make a tablet that's going to beat Apple.
Yeah, but Tesla did that in the car market, not necessarily in volume, but they're doing something in that space.
I totally agree, but Tesla are only achieving that because there's something out there that the rest of the car market was totally blinded by and not taking notice of. And that's kind of, I think, where the question is, right? If you look at the market that DJI has got, they're not going to be challenged anytime soon. Yeah. My confidence in DJI is there's not much there that I'm seeing that DJI is doing that I'm going, no, you're doing that wrong. You should do it this way. And if that's the case, then it's very hard to beat them because they've already got that history and the leg up. They're already a couple of steps above everyone else. Now, if a company comes along and finds something that's vastly better or an improvement or a better way of doing things, then they have a chance. But I'm not seeing anything that DJI could vastly improve on a big side in terms of the quality of their drones and how well they fly and so forth. Then I think that's the only way that you could beat DJI at their own game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just having a laugh at a comment from Bob Brown. To the public, a drone is a white Phantom 3 hanging outside someone's window, filming them while they're getting dressed.
Yeah, well, that's what I do with all my Phantom 3s.
Yeah. Yeah, for those who are regulars here, we had a great video that Ken Heron put together, compiled out of that ACA video, and it just took out the bits where you had a drone, or at least a fake drone, because they faked it. And, you know, it's not really possible to get that kind of footage unless you're flying illegally, and they didn't say that. They didn't say that these people were flying illegally. They were trying to make the public scared about every drone that's flying, and it really annoys me. Speaking of which, I got a response back from Channel 9. I actually did a complaint under the Code of Practice of Broadcasting in Australia, and they responded. I'm going to do a video on that sometime next week, so watch out for that one.
I will watch with great intent and eagerness to see exactly what they said. I'm sure it's very politically correct.
It was a load of junk. Anyway.
Yeah.
Look, any last minute questions, put them in now. And if I don't see anything else, we might move on to the Oz videos for the week. Any last thoughts for you while I go and get that ready?
Look, one thing I always see is there's this, I wouldn't call it a rift, but there's a divide between the DJI and the quad guy, the FPV guys. It was like, if you're one, you don't do the other, and it's like one side is blaming the other for ruining the hobby and so forth. And for those people that get into that kind of thing, both sides actually are very interesting and have a lot to offer. And in both sides, you have people which are not doing any good and doing good. I don't see why there at times there is a bigger rift as there is. We should all come together and just embrace the fact that we all like doing something similar but slightly in a different way. And it's cool stuff that we couldn't do 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one last chat comment before we go. My wife drones all the time. Should I complain to Casa about that? Boom tish. Anyway, let's move on. So we'll go to, as I press the button. So each week we like to share and feature some Australian video and Australian content by people who've been filming in Australia, and this is only new stuff that's been created this week, so we get some great material each and every week. Let's go and start to have a look. So first of all, we've got Wallaby Tim as the creator of this, and I do want to point out that all of these video creators, I've got a link to their channel in the description. And I've got a request to everyone who's watching today. Go and click on the link to their channels. And if you like it, subscribe to them, help them out, and I'm sure they'd appreciate that. That first one was at Borin Point, and he only had the drone for a week, so that was pretty cool for a week. Moving on from that, we've got Brody Grogan. And he titles this Storytelling Through Photography, Earliest Memories of a Child Growing Up in Rural Australia at Shearing Time.
And looking dry.
Looking very, very dry. This was in the tiny town of Deepwater in northern New South Wales.
Ah, yes.
Deepwater, how ironic. And just to share with everyone who's listening from outside Australia, yes, we are in drought. No, I don't think it's global warming. We've been having droughts year in, year out in Australia for many, many hundreds of years. That's our climate pattern. But anyway, let's not talk about climate change today. Casino Truck Show 2018. This was created by Overland Obsessed. This was a day with perfect sunshine, 200 immaculate trucks, some
cool.
show, some food stalls, markets, live music and children entertainment and so forth. So he had a great time that day.
Trucks taking over a small outback town.
Absolutely. And they have this regularly every year, I believe, at Casino.
Yeah.
And then from trucks we go to Tasmania. Ferg Taz is a regular in terms of the material that we see from his channel. He's got some great footage each and every time. This one is from Hemskirk Falls in West Coast Tasmania.
Tasmania is one of those places that I haven't visited that I really do want to visit. The footage that I see here, I'm like, I need to get out there and explore. It seems like such an amazing bit of countryside that a lot of people don't go and visit.
Yeah, we had a look at Mark's video some time back of him doing some dam diving in Tasmania. That was awesome as well.
Yeah. Mark getting up to no good as usual.
Absolutely, it's what he does.
Yeah.
And then moving on in a couple of moments, this is something that'll be more your style. Abandoned Gravity Drone Lifestyle from Steve K in a few moments, the next video.
Oh, 360.
Yeah, now, can you explain to me, it's looking at the quad from above.
Yeah, he'll have the 360 camera on like a stick, mounted above the quad. I've flown with a 360 camera before during the Dubai World Drone Prix, and followed some other pilots around the course. And the footage that you can get with a 360 camera is absolutely amazing if you use it correctly. Yeah. The one I flew was a couple of years ago. When they were sort of still fairly new, they're big and bulky, and you didn't really want to crash with one on.
But this footage, though, so this is a collection of some best bits at his favourite freestyle spot, which is the Tooth & Co. Brewery in Mittagong in Sydney's south.
As our people like to call it, bandos. The other guys like to find abandoned buildings and fly around them, which is very hard here in Australia, because we really don't have that many abandoned buildings compared to, say, America, where they're all over the place.
Absolutely. But certainly Co here, and I know my grandfather used to love a Tui's. But some absolute incredible skills there. But anyway.
Yeah, nice location. You break in order to get this footage.
Absolutely. This is the stuff where he didn't crash.
Yeah. So easy to get disorientated in buildings like that when you're upside down the right way around, diving, climbing.
Can I ask you, as someone who flies this kind of style, do you kind of have a 3D map in your head when you're flying? Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, well, generally in this kind of area, what you do is you start off slow, and you'll fly a couple of batteries around it so that you get a very good idea of the situation of everything. So you kind of do have like a 3D map in your head. Yeah.
Just moving on, we've got Simon Cooper flying under an old stone bridge and over water. He's flying in a Spark. This is in South Australia at Deep Creek Bridge and Basket Range.
I must say, I am quite impressed with some of the footage that I'm seeing coming out of these Sparks. When they first came out, I really didn't think much of the Spark at all, but it's showing its worth when you got someone who knows how to use it. They can still get some really good footage with it.
And certainly doing a little bit of a Matthias Allring reverse there. Have you heard of that guy?
No.
Matthias Allring, he's famous for flying backwards through things and having things passing by close.
Yes, yep.
Now, obviously this is not quite as fast as Matthias, but still some nice footage nonetheless. And in a couple of moments, we've got, again, Ferg Taz. We've even got two from him this week. This is at the Macintosh Dam, Tasmania.
About to say lower, lower.
So for those who are not from Australia, Tasmania is a very much hydroelectric generation kind of part of Australia. This is 5 kilometres from Tulla in Tasmania West. Beautiful place in the region.
they're also one of the few places in Australia that actually gets a decent amount of water.
Well, absolutely. Tasmania is full of it.
Yeah.
A lot of easy bushwalking tracks around the lake. 3-hour return walk to the summit of Mount Ferrol, etc., etc. Lots of beautiful bushwalking there in Tasmania's wilderness.
Yeah, if you are into getting into the wilderness and exploring that area, then Tasmania is probably one of those definite places to go and explore.
Yeah. So this is our last video from the Visit Australia series or Explore Australia series for today. So I just want to thank Greg Hilton for compiling and putting that together as he does every week. It certainly saves me a lot of time. As it is, this show takes up a tremendous amount of time to pull together, but that's another story. Yeah. I enjoy doing it.
That's good fun. Anytime you can just chat about something you enjoy doing with like-minded fools, it always makes it worthwhile.
Absolutely. And I always like Fergtaz. He always does some interesting finishes to his videos. We'll just wait for it here. It's coming up shortly. That wasn't the one that I thought it was. Never mind. I thought he did the rise over the end of it, but that was last week's one. My bad. Anyway, look, that's all we've got for today. I will quickly go through some housekeeping and some announcements. In the meantime, if anyone has any last-minute chat or questions, we're going to have a look at that in a couple of moments. So the announcements. Number one, please do subscribe to the channel if you are not already a subscriber. That would be very much appreciated. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, we're going to have a draw and give away an Osmo mobile. So be in it to win it, as they say. Like our page and also even share some of our video broadcasts to help us get to that 1,000. That would be really helpful. The reason we're trying to get there, by the way, just out of interest for people, one time YouTube banned us. Apparently we did something wrong. They could never tell us what it was. But if we've got 1,000 subscribers, we're a partner and we can actually talk to them. They don't listen to you if you're below 1,000. So that's why I want to get there. Twitter, do follow us on Twitter as well. Oh, what is that doing there? Subscribe today. I don't know where that came from. That normally has our postal address, but for some reason it's disappeared. Let me put the last slide in then. And oh, something weird has happened to all of these slides. Okay, I'll fix that next time. But if you do want to send us an email, send it to upload@gregkuhnert.com, upload@gregkuhnert.com. And if you've got anything that you need to send in the post, send it to 5/127 Princess Highway, Sylvania. That's about all I've got. Let's have a look over at the chat and see what's coming in. I've got too many windows here.
I know the feeling.
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, I do put in a great effort. This software, in fact, I want to do some videos on how to produce the show. How it is that what I do to create it. All of the technology and the software, you have no idea. I did have more hair before I started doing this. I'll say that much. But just out of interest, I'll share with people. So the wall behind me is not really white. It's actually a green wall, and it used to be a cloth and fabric, but I painted that green and doing all of that fun chroma key stuff. I've got 3 softbox studio lights in here. I've got my wife's Canon EOS 5D Mark IV camera sitting on a tripod, connected into a Blackmagic Design Intensity Shuttle Thunderbolt. So that goes into the computer. The software we use is Wirecast, sitting on the main broadcast computer. I've got my daughter sitting at that console, and I'm not allowed to mention her name on air, otherwise I get a fist. But she's controlling Wirecast over there. Over here on the computer in front of me, I've got Titler Live. Over here, I've got an Akai APC-40 Mark II, which is a secondary control, so I can override some of the stuff my daughter is doing sometimes if I want to change it. And I've got a Rode NT USB microphone sitting here, and the list goes on. It's absolutely incredible. Drone Shots wants my background. Great videos from Young360. I'm not wearing shorts. No, I'm wearing tracky dacks down below. And by the way, here's something interesting. A couple of people have asked me why I always wear blue or red. And the answer is the chroma key. It's a simple, flat color, and I always wear either blue or red shirts so that I don't have to worry about being invisible. But anyway, that's another story. What else have we got here? I want your background, Greg.
Young just posted before. She said, sorry to drop off today, but it was fun being on the show, though too short.
Yeah, look, it was good having you, Young. Speaking of which, I haven't yet locked in the guest for next week. I don't know if iSpiker's in the chat room today, but if he is, or if not, I'll reach out to him. That's who I'm going to ask to have on next week. I think Vegemite got me banned. Oh, there's another quick announcement. So I sent Vegemite to Chris Rollins, and I plan to have a Vegemite challenge with Chris and Ken. They've both got a tube of Vegemite, and Ken tried to eat it once, and he just put a little bit on a toothbrush and put it on his tongue, and he couldn't stomach it. So the challenge is I'm going to get them to try a bit on toast, the traditional way. Challenge number 1. Challenge number 2, brush your teeth. Since he tried it on the toothbrush, I thought that'd look hilarious. And then number 3, eat as much as they can stomach. See who can eat the most. So
we should do that live while we're both eating Vegemite to our heart's content with a nice big smile on their face while they're screaming like girls.
Absolutely. I've got one final thing that I'm going to do today. Something that Ken does on his show, and he's often had Alexa telling a joke on his show. And I don't have Alexa. We don't have Alexa in Australia. And until recently, Siri's jokes sucked. But for some reason this morning, I got up and I tried out Siri and I asked to tell me a joke. And it was actually decent. So let's see what happens. Tell me a joke.
What do you call a talking dinosaur? Thesaurus.
Thesaurus.
We're back to dad jokes again by the sounds of it.
Okay. Look, that's all we got time for today. It's been fun. I'll see you next time. Thank you, Chad, for being our guest. John will be back next week. And all things being equal, I'm going to ask iSpike to be our guest. See you next time, everyone. Bye for now.
See you later.